What's up guys, welcome back, hope you're all doing awesome. And today we're jumping into more Tales of Revenge, so don't forget to subscribe for more and let's get right into it friends. Sergeant wants me to pull armed guard duty with a broken arm. Let's do it. So backstory. Around the 2013 timeframe, I was stationed at a recently shut down US Army garrison in South Korea. I was attached to a unit known as United Nations Command Honor Guard, UNCHG. This was a multinational honor guard with representative military branches from a few different countries all living together. We did ceremonies for all bigwigs that came to the country, as well as armed security for very sensitive buildings on the installation. Those of us in the US Army, along with our South Korea counterparts, were solely responsible for the guard work. I will refrain from using certain buildings by name, as they were highly sensitive buildings requiring a lot of security. They are more like underground bunkers for doomsday situations, with windows and doors painted on to fool any satellites. This is where my story begins. I had broken my hand and arm shortly after arriving in Korea through faults of my own. I was in a hard cast and was deemed unable to perform armed guard or ceremonies until I healed. So I primarily ran radio checks and did patrolling rounds to catch anyone sleeping on duty. On this particular day, I was supposed to be off duty, but I was awoken by the sergeant of the guard who was also my squad leader. We will call him Sergeant K. He had an M9 with 2 mags and a pistol belt in hand. Before I can muster the words to explain I'm off, I'm informed that there is someone special in town and we must up the guards count. I try to explain there is no way in hell I can safely pull armed guard duty with a broken shooting hand and arm. At this point, I was technically considered unqualified for the M9, since I hadn't been to the shooting range for it in months. He tells me, just take it and go by the book. Roger that, Sergeant. I was put into a building that has a foot-thick vault door made of steel that leads to a protected guard booth. There is another door of equal size that leads to stairs that go to an underground tunnel that leads to a network of conference rooms as well as a large command hub. I've been on duty for around 2 hours at the station, reading over the standard operating procedure (SOP) for this particular hub. I noticed the book has a typo that clearly states only visitors that possess X color badge with X level security clearance are permitted access to this facility, when in reality it should have stated only X at minimum level security clearance may access, and all colors indicating higher security clearance are allowed access as well. Initiate compliance. In walks this British Army general in plain clothes. I ask for military ID to confirm who he is. He responds in good fashion. I shall certainly not have to show you who I am. I calmly state that this is the rule, and as I'm not accustomed to him, I can't take his word. He finally shows me his access badge, which unfortunately for him is the highest level he's able to get. I show him the book and clearly point, he can't access this facility unless he only has X clearance, and no higher. The look on his face was almost too much to keep from laughing and breaking composure. He turns bright red and walks out, I'm sure thinking I'm dim-witted. 10 minutes later, I have a royally pissed off Sergeant First Class, E7, pounding his fist on my ballistic glass window. He is screaming, "Open the damn door, specialist, before I skull drag you through this window." Now, I've met this man before, and he's typically a nice guy and helpful. But he's just found out I refused the British Army envoy access to the command meeting. This particular sergeant is the paper jockey for the 4-star general of the entire Korean peninsula and Asian theater. He has been sent by the general's orders to adjust me. I asked to see this sergeant's security access before I open the door to get skull dragged. Unfortunately for him, book says he needs X, and he has higher than X, so I refused. About 20 minutes later, I have the entirety of my command staff in the room with me, screaming and hollering, threatening to chapter me out for disobedience. I calmly ask to explain my actions and the circumstances. The sergeant from earlier arrives just in time for the explanation. He is still beet red and fuming to high hell. I open the book and point at it, and tell them I went by the book as ordered to by Sergeant K, and the book states that only X was allowed. And as stupid and ridiculous as it sounded, the book says anyone with a higher clearance was not authorized. The looks around this tiny room are of hysteria and defeat. The first one to laugh is this pissed off sergeant from earlier, who took the book and trashed it in the burn box and walked out. My commanding officer, executive officer, and platoon leader spent that night typing a new SOP for all gut stations. and Sergeant K was confined to pulling 24-hour guard shifts every other day for the week, as punishment for making an unqualified and physically incapable shooter pull an armed guard shift, and I was exempted from guard duty until the cast came off. Lady wouldn't vacate private parking space. Good luck finding your licenseless car in another country police impound lot. I have lived in an apartment complex in Lisbon, Portugal. The where is important, for the last 4 years. If anyone's from here, you'll know parking is hell. Fortunately, my building has a private garage. However, as is often the case, some parking places are more difficult to park in than others. I have one of the easier ones. Last year I was offered a job abroad, and took it. Thought I'd be nice, parked my car at my parents' where they have plenty of space, and left a notice in the building elevator that went along the lines of, "I'm the owner of 3B and will be away for at least 6 months. Feel free to use my parking spot." Ended up being away for longer, almost a year. Came back to see my parking spot occupied, which was okay since I offered for it to be used. Put another notice in the elevator, this time to say I was back and would use the parking spot again. Gave it 2 days, and picked my car up from my parents. Went into my garage, and my space was still being used. Had to park somewhere on the street and decided to give it another day. The day after, it was occupied again by the same car. Asked a couple neighbors and figured out it belonged to a lady living 2 stories above me. Went up to talk to her and she immediately got defensive and said that her parking spot is very difficult for her to park in. And since I was away for longer than I had announced, I lost the space. Which is a stupid logic, as the spots are bought with the apartment. It literally belongs to me. She also told me I couldn't use her parking space instead, as she was using it for storage. I went to the building admin who said he'd talk to her. He did, and came back shaking his head. Nothing. I sent a registered letter telling her to stop using my space, and giving her 48 hours to take her car elsewhere. The next day I saw the unopened letter in the garbage bin beside the mailboxes. I ended up scouting my garage waiting for her to leave, and would immediately park my car hoping she'd take the hint. She didn't, and we ended up doing this dance for a few weeks, up until the day I came back to see my entire driver's side keyed. That was the final straw. I talked to a friend who owns a towing company. We chose a Saturday morning. The last few weeks she hadn't left home on Saturdays. I knew as I had been watching her car like a hawk. So I thought we'd have big chances of her not noticing anything until everything was done, and towed her car. The plan initially was to leave the car just down the road, but that felt too close and too easy. Then I thought about leaving it in a city about 15 minutes away, but it still didn't feel quite right. My friend jokingly said, "Let's leave it in Madrid." FYI, Madrid is in Spain, about 600 kilometers or 375 miles away. I knew he was joking, but Madrid did feel right. I asked if he had enough time. He had, so off we went. Once we got to Madrid, we went out for lunch, strolled around the city, and waited until it got dark and the streets empty. In the meantime, we had already decided on where to leave the car, a handicap parking close to a police station. And so we did. As a bonus, my friend also took both license plates off the car. Then we drove back home. It has been 2 weeks and I haven't seen her car since. One of these days I might leave a letter in her mailbox telling her to contact Madrid police. But in the meantime, I'll enjoy being able to use my parking whenever I want to. Young and rude adults refuse to pay for public transport, but oh, sweet revenge at the end of the day. I work as a train driver. I drive smaller trains mostly out on the countryside, and people are generally nice and well behaved. But of course, there are also the alcoholics, drug addicts, and general weirdos that use public transport, and some people that just live to be a pain in the ass. This was a few years ago. We were traveling in the late afternoon and my conductor, let's say C, storms into the driver's cabin angry and annoyed and tells me, "We have 2 rude, good-for-nothing guys on board and they're such a-holes." What did they do, I ask. They have no tickets, refuse to pay, just laugh up in my face and are saying, "What are you gonna do about it?" What the hell? Should I help you throw them off at the next stop? I asked. We can't because they're just traveling 1 station, so they're getting off at the next stop. Goddamn smug guys with their "what are you gonna do about it?" So we're both angry. I let the conductor rant and let off some steam. Next stop comes and the guys get off. The conductor angrily gestures at them. That's them. F***ers. We continue the short remaining journey and have a break at the end station. Some hours later, the train then goes back. Since it's in the countryside and it's a late weekend evening, the train is almost empty on the way back. The conductor knows where every passenger on board is getting off, and she's up in front with me chatting and all is fine again. Until we approach the station where we let those guys off. We see two people standing there. It is them. My conductor beside me shines up like a goddamn sun. She says, with the biggest smile on her face, "Do not stop." And I'm just laughing, slowing down the train, not stopping though. When we pass them, my conductor opens the window, waves, and says loud and happily, "This is what I'm gonna do about it." The guys are just staring at her with their jaws on the ground when we drive past them. We laugh, all the way to our home station. We were the last train for the day. Edit. I wrote in the comments that we encountered these guys again a few weeks later. I'll post it here as well because these guys did not learn the first time. They apparently got on at the same station like last time, but we didn't notice them. They had plans to travel further than last time, but when the conductor went out to check the tickets, it went like this. Conductor spots them, recognizes them, and says loudly among the other travelers, "Oh, are you able to pay for your tickets today?" They just fidget and say, "No, we ain't got no money." Well, ain't that a shame? Guess you have to get off at the next stop. What the f***? Can't you be nice and let us be? What the f*** are we gonna do at that shitty station? Guys, I don't give a damn. You're going off this train and you can walk to the next station. And I'm calling the train behind us so they won't pick you up either. They got off. The other train called us later because they saw the guys walking on a forest path along the railway track. And I haven't seen these guys since. That is it for today, friends. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. If you enjoyed, be sure to drop a like and also subscribe if you haven't already. So take care and I'll see you next time.